obliteration of the kingdoms of lies, the deceptive mirage and prison of wealth, power, influence, fame, and control in your world explained in a short paragraph. Isn't it amazing that many of today's leaders of governments rule like immortal gods, but are protected like vulnerable little children? That is not new. It has been most, but not all of your history. It is also not sequestered to leaders of governments. Along with them, the ruling elite throughout all of history have had to be protected by entire armies and live in gated communities separated from the masses over which they ruled. That sounds a lot like a prison existence, doesn't it? Now, what does that tell you about wealth, power, influence, fame, and control in this world? Who do they have to be protected from? Well, first off, their own people whom they fear the most. And then secondarily, their enemies whom they fear also. They have to protect and project one image to everyone on the surface, yet the reality behind the facade and inside them is quite a different reality. Is that not shallowness of life? What do you call those who live in daily fear, insecurity, and are bound to external appearances and expectations, which they have to constantly maintain and attempt to appease prisoners and slaves? These same elites construct elaborate systems of government and security, not so much for those they rule, but to protect themselves from those they rule over. Now think about that. Think about why your world is as it is. The more you have to protect. The more you have fame and influence, the more of a target you are by the expectations of others. The more power you have, the more others lust for it and desire to take it from you. The more wealth and possessions you have, the more others covet it and seek to find ways to take it from you. The more you fear those taking it away from you, the more control you desire to protect yourselves from them. The control you gain, the more you create the conditions for enemies to rise up and take that control away from you, which drives you to become more paranoid and control even more, fueling the very conditions you fear most. See where this ends? The more one has of any of these things, the more they desire more of them, including control, to protect them from those who lust for it and would do anything to take it from them. The more you take for yourselves, the less there is for everyone else, undermining the very ground you stand upon in the heights of the land over the people. The less they have, the more they see you as the reason for it and hate you. In this way you fuel your own demise by your own thinking, decisions, and actions, in ever-growing fear, confusion, and stress, which turns you into the very beast you feared in the first place. Broad is that path to destruction. Now consider why I call the false promises of this world a lie. Everything has a cost here now, doesn't it? As for people, so too for nations. When you dry up the ground beneath your feet financially and crush and plunder those simply who are trying to make a living and provide for their families, you destabilize everything. You who have the most wealth, power, influence, fame, and control gained, and put all of it at risk in your indifference, blind ambition, greed, fear, confusion, and avarice and hubris. Instead of building a better society, you devour and destroy the one you have until it eventually devours and destroys you. Is this not exactly your global predicament right now? That is not new. It is the totality of your history. There be nothing new under the sun, but the timing of the consequences for it. As you can see here in the post, when you build a world that always promises more and you jettison truth, love, justice, mercy, humility, contentment, and restraint, you create a beast from the black hole of your emptiness, which devours and destroys both you and the entire world. It is a world which is ruled by more and delivers ever less on the promises. It is a chasing after your shadow. It is a world of darkness in it. It is a chasing after the wind. It is a sowing of the wind, which will bring the reaping of it and a whirlwind of consequences. This is your predicament. This is your prison. This is your world. It is how it functions, and how and why it will end. The nature of addiction is based in the lie that you always need more. Is this not your entire world? Is it not what has driven all that causes human suffering and destruction of your kingdoms, nations, empires, and people? It is but an empty shadow of eternal real. Thus why we call it the valley of the shadows of death. There will never be enough temporal people, places, and things to fill the infinite space that only the eternal Spirit of God can fill. Attempting to do otherwise is the singular reason why your global world history is the wreckage it has always been. Now you know why this world is temporal. You also now know why it will end. It was never made for eternity. Neither are your mortal coils. As for people, so do for the nations. This is your world. You don't know because you don't seek. You don't seek because you don't want to know. You don't know because you don't ask. You don't ask because you don't think you can, don't want to, or don't believe that you will receive. You don't see because you don't realize you are without sight. You don't have sight to see because you are in darkness. You are in darkness because you believe lies. You believe lies because you don't seek, nor see, nor ask for the truth. Why is this? Because you are in fear of what you see, hear, and come to know. Fear is false evidence appearing real. You are in fear because you are deceived and enslaved by lies. The lies cannot exist without deceiving you and keeping you from the truth. For the lies cannot tolerate asking for truth nor questioning whether or not it is true. Thus the lie keeps in the darkness bound to itself, using you against your own best interests to keep you from being free from its tyranny and fear and confusion, having been deceived by it. Hence you do not ask, do not seek, do not see, and do not know. Yet you lie to yourselves and others, calling lies truth, and truth lies, even waging war against the truth, being a proxy for the very lie that is enslaving and destroying you, keeping you from the very truth you are being used to fight against. By fighting against the truth, you expose yourselves and prove it true, yourselves in a lie. Thus both you and your darkness and the lies are exposed and end by the light of the truth. So you deny it and attempt to discredit, fight it, and silence it even more in pride, which only further quickens your exposure by the light of the truth. So you attempt to ignore and pretend it does not exist, worsening your condition and hastening the consequences there wherein. And many of you wonder why your world is as it is. You do know why. I have told you. The question is, how long will you deny this and continue to remain in the darkness which characterizes your world, even to your own destruction? As for people, so do for the nation and nations. You may deny the existence of the living Word of God, the living Logos, but your own logic falls apart attempting to refute it and war against it. So too does all you make him rely on a part in doing so, including your lives, societies, and nations. For you corrupt all things, being in a lie, denying the very thing which upholds and sustains your world and all that is in it. Then you blame God. You blame the light of the truth, calling it a lie. You pretend you are without error and unquestionable. You think you are immune from the consequences of doing so, yet you wonder why things are as they are. You do know you are lying when tell yourselves and others anything different. Yet you demand truth from others. Yet when they tell you the truth you do not wish you hear, you hate them and attack them. What does this say about you and what you are doing and being exposed in? It shows you that the darkness you are in cannot stand up to the truth. but in fact is dependent upon it, just as you are, even though your pride cannot admit it. Thus you destroy yourselves in that pride, serving the lies that are leading you straight to it. This is your world. There are no more excuses, nor will you be allowed to continue to rule this world, nor the one to come. For those lies have a cost, and costs equate to loss. So it was, so it is, and so it will be. There is truth you will deny as well, right up until your own destruction, lest you turn from your lies to the truth. There be nothing illogical than to choose a lie over the truth, and then proclaim your lies as truth. This too is exposed. Still think everyone, including you who are reading or hearing this, don't need grace. It is amazing how many wish to undermine the fundamentals of Christianity, only to find they have exposed and undermined themselves, their intents, and the corrupted ways they have attempted to do all this, and proven but they fight true and themselves in a lie. The darkness rises in each generation, attempting to rerun a repackaged war against the truth, only to utterly exposed and defeated. This time is no different. This generation is no different, with one exception. The lies will utterly obliterated for all time and space and history. Welcome to the holy fire, adversaries. It is all consuming of that which is not from it, and of it while exposing all things. Those who wish to cancel truth do so at their own peril, and embark upon an endeavor which cancels them out of the book of life by their own thinking, choices, decisions, and actions. I learned early on to question things and seek the truth about them wherever it led me. That has been a great gift to me my whole life. I also learned to not follow the herd, instead going against it without regard to the consequences, which oftentimes meant isolation and alienation. From a very young age I had a strong sense of justice and mercy, which also has served me well. What I also learned is that here in America, people use a lot of words and say little. They also use a lot of words and mislead many. You see, I have been a maverick my entire life. Not without cause, however. America taught me much throughout my life. What it taught me the most was not to bend a knee to it while living the people in it. It taught me to not put my faith in people or governments, money or power, influence or popularity. Those have served me well also. America also showed me that it is a tale of two completely different nations, one that actually aspires to live up to what it purports, and the other one which purports it, but uses it to make merchandise out of everyone else. It would seem that not worshiping America has also granted me the vision to see not only what it is, but also what it should be and could be. It also showed me what most worship here is themselves and money. Many, if not most, really don't worship God. They make their own here and then pretend they aren't doing it. It would seem those are the ones who also bent a knee to America, corrupting it, and themselves in the process. They are inherently unworthy to govern it, nor continue to plunder the people of it to serve their bottomless pit of greed, pride, and idolatry of self and possessions. They do not truly love Americans or the nation. They only love what they can get out of them both, without regard to the consequences. Their time is coming to a close. So too is their control over everyone else. The world does not suffer from a lack of truth. It suffers from a denial of it and the corruption of it when they attempt to take what is true and use it for corrupted reasons and in corrupted ways in their own wisdom, and works apart from the Spirit of truth, which is the light of the living Word of God. Hence they are darkened by the spirit of the age in their minds, and enslaved to it in their minds, bodies and souls, having been deceived by lies. There is a reason we tell you that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. The reason you peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations are in the state they are is because they have been and are being deceived by lies meant to divide, distort, enslave, devour, and destroy you by using you all against one another to protect the very darkness of the lie that is doing it to you. You are in a war. The truth sets the prisoners free and defeats the enemies of the truth. Are you tired of being manipulated by lies, fear, confusion, the expectations of others, the oppression thereof, and your addictions? Seek the truth in all things with all of your heart, and you will find it, and find a freedom you never knew was possible in the light of the truth, as the darkness and the things in the darkness that held you fast in chains are exposed and defeated once and for all. There is a reason we ask who are free say to you that we are more than conquerors. We fight for you to be free in the light of the truth. We will not be defeated, for we have already won this war. Tell me this, name one single thing that Satan, meaning the adversary, created, ex nihilo, meaning out of nothing. Some will say evil. Evil was not created out of nothing. Satan created nothing. It only distorted, mixed up, confused, and corrupted what already was. His end always has been, that being the truth. A distortion, mixing up, confusion, and corruption of truth is the genesis, or better said, the origin of lies. Do not lies bring about confusion and error? Indeed it does. A lie is the misappropriation, misuse, mixing up, and misapplication of truth to mislead and deceive in intent and outcomes. The truth is not dependent upon lies to exist. The lie is dependent upon truth to exist. This is clearly seen in how a shadow cannot exist without the light which casts it down to the dust of the ground from an object. The darkness of the shadow is dependent upon the very light it flees from, for you will never see a shadow point towards the light, only away from the light. It is a lie when some tell you there is a balance of light and darkness. They are not in harmony. They are oppositional, and they are not equal. The darkness is dependent upon the light to exist, which means that the light exposes and extinguishes the darkness in the same way that the truth exposes the darkness of the shadow and all that is deceptive and confused in it. Where one finds evil, they will also find pride, fear, and confusion. For a lie rules by and for those things. Those things are not in truth and love, justice, and mercy, nor humility, and contriteness of heart, and soundness of mind. As we say in Christianity, the God of truth did not give you a spirit of fear nor confusion, but rather peace, love, power, and a sound mind. One cannot have a sound mind when they are in a lie and blind by fear and confusion. Likewise, being deceived by a lie steals your peace, corrupts and counterfeits love, drains your power, and confused your thinking and perceptions. Hence why it is of and in the darkness. That darkness projects upon people what it is, and what it is in using deception and lies to enslave. It comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Is this not what pride, fear, confusion, corruption, and lies manufactured in this world and in your own minds, bodies, and souls? Being that evil seeks to distort, deceive, enslave, dominate, plunder, devour, and destroy people, places, and things, it wage war against all humanity, seeking to keep humanity from the light of the truth which exposes its intents, schemes, and plans. That is an act of war. Is not war characterized by all of these things? It is said all war is deception. Indeed it is. All wars have their genesis in pride, fear, confusion, and lies. All of these bring division, destruction, suffering, and death, do they not? Have you not heard of the fog of war? War is the realm of uncertainty. A sensitive and discriminating judgment is called for, a skilled discernment to seek out the truth. It is the wise nation whose leaders seek the light of truth in all things humbly before heaven. It is the foolish ones who seek to take it and corrupt it while hiding the light of it only to thicken their own darkness and their blindness because of it. For all of heaven and all of earth testifies to these things, for the Tao of the humble is the way of the wise, the Tao of the prideful is the way of the fool. For those who think themselves wise in their own eyes are blind to their own reflections, and the other whom they think are but fools. Yet God chose to use the foolish things on this world to confound those who are wise in their own eyes, for in this way he puts them on display, for the all to see the folly of the wisdom, and the wisdom in those whom they thought fools. It is in that spectacle the arrogant are exposed and humiliated, even as the humble are revealed. For wise is those who trust in the Lord God Almighty. Foolish are those who think them fools for doing so. All of human history testifies to this among all generations, to all peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations. All of creation tells this story for all times and space, that none may say they did not know nor did they see what was clearly present with them and among them and all round them in all things. For the fool sees neither what is perceivable nor what is beyond the surface appearances of those things. For they have chosen to see not nor hear not, though in their hearts they know they are but liars pretending, as their denial testifies against them also. Yet they be found without excuse, and without covering to hide their guilt and shame. As for people, so do for the nation and all nations. Name one single war in human history that was not started and sustained by fear, confusion, lies, greed, lust for power, and pride. Can you do so? Not if you are being honest about it. Yet you still wonder why it is that your world is as it is. You can only do so if you deny truth and prefer your lies. However, you must know that if this is your choice, it will lead you into deeper darkness, blinding you further even as it drives you to delusional madness towards your destruction. Now you know why we call this the both valley of decision and the valley of the shadow of death. For wages of sin is death, and that is precisely where it leads you to in its lies. Is it any wonder the moon was worshipped as the god Nanasen by the ancients? The moon has not light of its own, but rather only reflects the light of the sun. Even when there is a full moon, there is still darkness. Now consider also where we get the term false light from. False light is a presenting of evidence and facts, as well as people, places, and things out of the true context, meaning that it presents things as false evidence appearing real when it is actually a lie. Now consider that it is said all war is deception. Perhaps where all peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations are being deceived is that they are being used to destroy one another, while the lie that led them there deceived them into doing the work for it. Rather sounds like some passages out of the 7 ancient Chinese military classics, doesn't it? Why do you suppose that is? Those who fear the most are also those who project it the most, having been made proxies to it and for it themselves. Now, why would they have the most to fear? Well, it is not because they love the truth. It is because they hate it and fear it. Now consider yourselves. The reason so many of you fear the truth is because you are enslaved to a lie. The reason you fear what you do not understand is because if you understood it, you might just get free from the lie that is preventing you from pursuing what it not, defeating it. Well, now you know. Why do you suppose so few people share and or get access to things that right regarding truth? Some fear what others might think, and other fear that others might see it and be exposed by it. So many suppress it. Some actively oppose it, yet cannot stand against it for fear of it exposing them. They are both wrong, for it has already exposed both, and one's actions prove it. Yet you wonder why your world is as it is, for the very truths that are suppressed here are the very ones most suppressed in their own hearts and minds, then create a world filled with the very things they fear most, so they can play the victim and self-justify living a lie and doing what they know is evil. Yet they deny this when they know it to be true, thus proving they loved not the truth, so were turned over to a reprobate mind. Hence they exchange the truth for a lie and suffer the consequences for it. This is why they blame others for it, because they cannot admit, not bear the guilt and shame of having done so. So they live in fear of being exposed, all the while doing the very things which expose them on their attempt to avoid it. Now you know. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Suppress it some more, most likely right up until the final moment to stop denying comes. As for people, so do for the nations. Perfect love casts out all fear. Consider that phrase. Also consider fear as false evidence appearing real. So what else is cast out when it loses its place within you? The lies which enslaved you to the fear to begin with. This is why we say that it is the light of the truth which sets you free. The truth exposes the shadow of darkness and that which is done in it to enslave you to itself. Now consider why it is that those who are in the grips of a lie are also darkened in mind, having been blinded by the spirit of the age. Now you know. George Carlin was brought up to me recently in his perspective of the futility of change. As insightful as he was no visionary nor man of faith beyond the scene and the circumstances thereof. Yes, his exposure of things and were both humorous as they were insightful and cynical. Many allowed the toxin of nothing can change to create chains upon themselves. Another ego would seek in doing so. I do not take my lead from such people. Carlin did serve to point out and give voice to the resignation of many to a quiet, if not bitter, acceptance of the way the nation had become. Nature abhors a vacuum. Not standing up to stave off the forces of evil only allowed that evil to enter into that vacuum and seek to fill up the space only eternal truth, love, justice, and mercy can. Carlin did not believe in that which could have prevented this, yet he lived in comfort and success, mocking the very futility he had become enslaved to. In the end, it mocked him despite his perceptions and observations of a society become more machine-like than authentically human. I know his words well. Do you know mine? What gave rise to such discontent and dissipation? What is it that brought such a mix of consternation and resignation? Shall we remain complicit and complacent to those who would continue to make merchandise out of us and provisions of us to feed their bottomless pit of appetites? Shall we go quietly into the night, having forsaken not only truth and freedom, but also courage and hope? I ask you, shall we continue to give ourselves over to that which neither satiates nor fulfills? I am not willing to accept that which is and has been making desolate what was once fertile for human flourishing in mind, body, and soul. What say you, my friends? Are we to be complicit with quiet duplicities and the noise of the ambivalent? For the chaff of these times is blown about by the whirlwinds of their own making, having lost faith in heaven above and within, and in truth sought and lived out in authenticity. For it is these things that place chains upon this nation, and which come like a poisonous serpent to sink its fangs into the comfortable, unsuspecting and uncaring, are phantoms who seek to cajole and tempt into an acceptance of their fate by transference of it upon us all. Should we remain content in our desolations and perversities? Shall we go on pretending all is well when the nation lay upon a bed of sickness fraught with the societal maladies brought about by the well-heeled indifferent? Shall we continue to chase our shadows and cold than the light, turning out backs upon the very light of truth which upholds and sustains freedom and liberty. I ask you, shall we cede ourselves to those dark forces which have always sought to usurp both heaven and earth in its pride and endless machinations and deceptions? For many say there is nothing can do to change our predicament. Certainly that be the case for those who have accepted their chains, for nothing will surely come from nothing endeavored nor believed in that can be different than one's own present circumstances, for the lie hath convinced them it is so. These such souls have always postulated inversions from their inverted condition. Nothing comes from nothing in that pitiful state of mind and body. Yet all of history does so reveal their words to not be accurate. Though many think our plight great, and its complexities to entwine to see beyond them, yet many more, even some these former ones, in their heart of hearts, are even still willing to stand up and take action to reverse the abominable reversal of our national fortunes, which has sought to change the appointed times and seasons and cast both man and nation alike into a darkness which was long ago defeated. Defeated it is still, for if it were not, it would not be fighting so intently to convince you otherwise that our cause is hopeless and our fate as a nation already determined. For this is their great lie, not our greater truth. It is their great darkness, not our greatest of lights, being the truth of the living Word of God Almighty. Let us not succumb to such obsidian phantoms. Instead, let us find within each of us that hope and the courage that comes from faith in the Almighty to overcome the adversity of our times. Let us regain a sense of genuine purpose and steadfastness to fight the good fight, not remaining focused upon the surface appearances in the twilight of our discontent, but rather stand in and upon the truth that we are more than conquerors. We are liberators and deliberated by and in the light of the truth, which will likewise strengthen us and guide through this perilous night of the soul. It is time to slay those giants of fear. As for people, so do for the nation and nations. Oth Neo Max Day.